Hey, everybody. Welcome to Travel Tuesday on Beard Bros Media Network. My name is Brian Applegarth. I'm your host for Travel Tuesday. I work with JNS Next as Director of Marketing and Sales for the Cannabis and Hemp Division, and it's an honor to be here with Beard Bros Media, shining a spotlight on cannabis and hemp travel and tourism. This episode is featuring Dan, aka Captain Hooter, who has a heck of a history with cannabis, hemp, and cannabis tourism specifically. Very excited to have you here, Dan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Thrilled to be able to be here.
So, Dan, let's start at the beginning. Where did your passion ignite for the cannabis plant and the cannabis movement?
Oh, God. I had a very unique upbringing. My father was a cocaine dealer and
Wow.
a very successful one. Went, all the way kind of to the front row, so to speak. And my whole childhood was surrounded around having that and whatever the best cannabis of that time was from a very young age. I had a stepmother by the time I was 10. And by the time I was 10, I was a very competent joint roller. I was taught how to roll joints with American flag rolling papers so that you could line up the stripes in order to roll the joints properly. And like I said, from about 10 years old, I didn't really smoke it per se. I was constantly around it. So, I was aware at 10, 11 years old, what sensimilla was. I
Yeah.
understood, flour with no seeds and the quality Colombian in those days. It was a long time ago. Anyway, I grew up around it my whole life,
Yeah.
and I when there was an opportunity when I was in my 40s with my wife. We were in our 30s still, with my wife, to come to one of the High Times Cannabis Cups in Amsterdam. And this was when Steve Hager was the running the show, and there was still Chef Raw and Jack Herrera, and all of those players were involved. And my wife and I got here about a week before our first cup here. We stayed at
Mhm.
the Grand Hotel, which was right next to the greenhouse.
Okay.
And at that
Was it a famous
time,
coffee shop? Yeah. Famous coffee
one of the
shop in
one of the
Amsterdam.
most famous, right? And the one of the most famous duo was Aryan and Franco, and they were the strain hunters. And they at that time they were just becoming the strain hunters, but
Yeah.
here they were, and we got there a week early. We walked over, and Franco was there, and it was my first experience at really having this greenhouse experience, or this coffee shop experience. And my God, it was like having your first hamburger place with Gordon Ramsay. It was like, here's this, that literally a brilliant, one of the most hospitable, kind,
Right.
brilliant, infectious men. He infected me with loving Amsterdam and
Wow.
loving the history and loving all of the different growers. And he taught me about Mila the hash queen, and how was really one of the first people who did everything there with a tea house before there were
Right.
coffee houses. And he introduced me to Soma, the guy who created Amnesia Haze, and all of these. But he was the one who really you know gave me the thing about this whole coffee shop experience. And
Yeah. Well, Amsterdam's a fascinating destination, right? I mean, they have led the world. I think 1975 is really when it started. Maybe in the early 70s, a couple years before that, to your
yeah,
point. But
even
you
before
know,
that, yeah, Mila
yeah.
Mila had a clothing store, and it was
Mhm.
a tea house. And it wasn't a place where you bought weed, but everybody kind of knew that was when you went to Mila's place. They gave you weed. They would give you joints.
The
And I,
gifting.
I mean,
Yeah.
One of the absolute most phenomenal, she's the creator of the Dabadoo. One of my favorite people. That's her. One of my favorite ladies in the world. The history with that lady is incredible with Amsterdam. Even the last apartment that I was living in, which was right on the single, right in the center of town, when she came over, we looked out the window and she goes, "Oh, that was my old garden." I went,
Yeah.
"What?" And there's this big bridge right where I lived, and underneath it was a dungeon that had a tunnel that went right to the royal palace, and it was left abandoned for decades. And she did 2 grow seasons inside the dungeon under a bridge in Amsterdam. And it was like, just the little phenomenal stories like that are I just like candy for me.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about Amsterdam. It sounds like you had a really amazing experience. I mean, looking at this through the travel lens, you arrived in Amsterdam, going to the High Times Cup, spending time at Greenhouse. As a traveler who's drawn into cannabis, tell us a little bit about that first impression and the impact it made um, concerning the destination of Amsterdam in your eyes.
Sure. Well, at the time we had arrived at that particular time, my wife and I owned a meeting and travel management corporation. So we planned events for major corporations all around the world. So we were already traveling everywhere, and already knew where all the best spots were for finding the best smoke wherever it happened to be, and where it was easy, and where it was legal, and where it wasn't. And you have to be intelligent when you're traveling, especially in some of these locations where it gets a little sketchy. But it's been, again, in the last few years, after having an opportunity to really start to explore Spain, northern Spain and southern Spain, especially down in southern Spain, whole new worlds have, opened up for me. And then you start seeing, okay, well, this is a thing, because I've never wanted to do anything that was illegal. And again, I gave you my background. So, having a dad went to jail and stuff, I've never been in trouble. I don't do anything that breaks any laws. When I wrote my book, I literally followed the guidelines of the way the laws were set. So I only did 5 coffee shops a day, 1 gram per coffee shop. So that I never did 5 a day. So I'm about following the rules. And working within those kind of guidelines kind of sets you up to at least be able to enjoy, spots around the world. And especially now that people know that I'm Captain Hooter, at a lot of different locations that I go to, people search me out, which is fantastic.
Yeah, well, I love what you're touching in on here too, Captain Hooter, is, under Prohibition, right? So 1937, under Prohibition, when that came into play, it changes the landscape. And I've heard people tell stories about trying to procure cannabis from their cab driver or their bellhop or their concierge. Like there was this, there was a landscape that was this kind of illegal, prohibited, and how it impacted the travel experience. And now today, you have 9 countries with legal adult use 21 and up cannabis. You have 24 states in the US plus DC. And you have a whole new mainstream integrated above board travel. So let's talk about your book. You mentioned going to specific coffee shops, procuring 1 gram of flower per compliance, and creating a resource for people to really direct them to the best places with the best weed. Tell us a little bit about that journey and how you went about it.
So when my wife and I moved to the Netherlands, when we finally made a decision to come and move there, initially we moved to a city outside of Amsterdam called Utrecht. And then we went from Utrecht to another place. And then we ended up in this amazing old building from 1660 something. And it was literally catty corner across the street from the greenhouse. The original greenhouse, that was the one that really tripped the trigger to begin with. And we're in this place, and one of my good friends from Victoria, BC, Canada called me, and he goes, all right, well, there you are. You're right there in the middle. what's the best coffee shop in Amsterdam?
Right.
And I'm one of those people that are very systematic and complete. So I answered him correctly by saying, I don't know, I haven't been to all of them yet. And he said back to me, well, that sounds like a job for Captain Hooter. and, and the original Captain Hooter goes way back to my 20s, and had to do with how big we used to call a joint a hooter. My crew, my gang. So
that's where it comes from. Yeah.
Twist a hooter, and I could roll big fat hooters, and this was before Hooters, the Hooters. And so I like my Hooters better.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was how Captain Hooter got going, and literally the next day, I started. I laid it all out. Here was 168 coffee shops. I need to do 5 a day, and I analyzed them all and reviewed them all. I did it just like a Michelin restaurant. Again, I've been in the hospitality industry for 25 years. I'm used to Four Seasons and Ritz-Carltons and Waldorf Astorias, and so my bar is extremely high. I'm also a very high-end poker player, so I'm very good at watching people and noticing little details. How clean is everyone? How well educated is everyone? How's your hospitality? I'm aware of everything, and so I went about it like that. And and that was it. And literally 2 weeks into it, I realized I was way over my head.
In what way?
I was used to primarily my knowledge base was from North American cannabis. So either from Canada or from the United States, anywhere all over the United States, and some Thai and Hawaii, of course. But I became used to being cognizant of what I was smoking was what I'm told it is. Here, that was not the case, and immediately, I'm looking at flower, and I'm looking at it. And I'm going, okay, this is Snoop Dogg Cali Kush. This is not Snoop Dogg. It's not Cali, and it's not even a Kush. And I was 2 weeks in, and I was going to bail on the whole project. And somebody introduced me to Max Montrose, the guy who created the Trichome Institute. And
Interpening, right?
Interpening. Correct. And I got on the phone with him, and on the spot, he gave me like a 2-hour interpening masterclass. I eventually went back and completed all of their courses and all of their entire curriculum. But he gave me enough in that one session to allow me to proceed in a more intelligent manner. And from that point, then I started taking microscopic shots of every single sample. I went back and shot the ones that I had done from before. So everything I was able to do, in a manner where I could, at the end of it, I could say, okay, I did all of the coffee shops. This is correct. Bam.
Right.
That's the top 20. And
love it.
Yeah. And that was basically, and I felt comfortable about it. And then afterwards, I started doing some videos. I went to Barcelona and went to all the best shops there, and went to Las Vegas. And when my book came out, I started traveling around and doing some weekend bud reports, where I would go to 5 different coffee shops. I would pick out 5 different buds, and then I would interpen them all. And then I would tell you what they cost. And then I'd put out the videos on Thursday. So when you arrived in Amsterdam for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, those buds would be in those coffee shops.
Yeah, the 3-day getaway, finding quality flower. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking about quality right now. Before we move off quality craft flower, cannabis, high grade, tell people a little bit about interpening and how that helped you assess the flower, just for context for people that don't know.
Crucial. Everything for me. Everybody has their own sets of skills, and the description that a lot of interpeners will tell you is that interpening is allowing you to be, quote unquote, like a sommelier of cannabis. So you're looking at everything from this range of expertise using every tool that's available to you. And everybody has different skills and different levels of each one of these. For me, mine is my microscopic skills. You know, I'm 64 years old now. My aroma perception ability is weakened just because I'm old. My sense of taste is also weakened. Now, I have from Abstracts Tech, their interpening terpene profiles that I even practice with all the time, do blind testing with. Doesn't matter. It's one of those things you either still have it or you don't have it. What I do have is I'm like the guy from the Mission Impossible. I have a defined set of skills with a microscope, and within 2 minutes, I can take any bud and tell you the entire autopsy on that flower, and give you a really good breakdown of exactly what you have, what it's worth, what it costs, what's wrong with it, what it needs, what it doesn't. And that's from now shooting. You know, I think I'm somewhere around 9,000, almost 10,000 flowers since I've been over here.
Wow.
Yeah, I was doing all of the social media for the largest coffee shop here in Amsterdam for about a year and a half. And I shot every single sample there for a year and a half. And that was somewhere around 950, almost 1,000 different cultivars and multiple shots. You know, that's 500, 1,000 shots of each one of those flowers and then stacked. And then, you know, so, and when you shoot that many, you know, and you get a chance, it's like, you know, if you're buying oranges and you're the orange buyer, but mine is not based on my subjective, you know, this isn't my opinion. This is what it is. And that's kind of the difference of what I'm doing versus, you know, other stuff.
So you really specialize in the visual assessment quality of a flower. Okay.
Well, and that's what's necessary as hell right now. I mean, there's some of the samples, especially since the pandemic, I've actually come up with an acronym for it, Bob's Buds. We've been diluted with Bob's Buds, bugs, old, botrytis, and seeds. And,
interesting.
and often all four of those.
Yeah.
And you know, in a lot of different markets and different places around the world, if you start getting into that kind of a level of quality, you lose customers. That's not the case in Amsterdam. And you know, that's the thing that's kind of hard to get your head around a little bit, especially when you're an enthusiast and you care about quality and you care about, you know, and you go, oh my God, you know, you can't sell this. And they go, this will be sold by Monday.
Yeah. And it's interesting with the legal supply chain markets, you have this testing tier, which is trying to tackle quality control, right? So, and I believe there's some pilots happening in Netherlands with the supply chain. Can you, what's your take on the pilots happening in the Netherlands and how that is going to enhance tourism and travel when it comes to cannabis in the future?
Boy, I hope it's going to be a help. Here's the thing. There are some incredibly talented people that are working in the experiment. And there's 10 licensed cultivators who have a license to be able to do this. I know several of them are already up and going. I have already evaluated the full lineup of several of them. And there's some fire, and I hate using that term because it's the most bland used term around everywhere. Oh, it's fire. It is a significant upgrade over what has been presented here, with one of the biggest caveats, which is everything is tested. And that means that's something that is not been happening here. And they might say it's being tested, they might say, but most of the time it's not. And it doesn't. And here's the thing, it makes sense that it isn't, because they get it on a Friday and however many kilos it is. And okay, if I send it to get tested, I'll have it back by Tuesday. This will all be sold by Monday. Right. So again,
so the testing.
Right. But now,
no.
And it was actually at one point, it was illegal to test. But now with the experiment, and since the experiment started, it's mandatory for them to test, and it's totally legal for everybody else to test their products. But again, you're in a fast food. This is the 7-Eleven of, or the the In-N-Out burger of buds here, and it's so different. Now, if you go north and you go to Den Haag, now you've got a place where this is a whole environment where they are really looking to keep their customers, and they need and their whole business is built on repeat business. And there's where, and even going back to my first bud, when my first book, when people ask me where's the best place to go to get some flower in Amsterdam, and I would say The Hague. Actually, you're gonna and so,
well, you're touching in on the difference between a resident customer spend versus a visitor customer spend.
Sure.
And when you start looking at Amsterdam as a tourism economy with a high volume of visitor dollars flowing through it, it's fascinating when you start thinking about partnerships, marketing. What does it even look like? Why is that customer profile so different? How the basket sizes and the psychology behind the spends are different.
Exactly.
And being able to see how brands build and grow in tourism-based economies versus resident-based economies versus a mix of both is a really interesting algorithm today with these legal markets, whether it's medical cannabis legalization, hemp legalization, or adult use rec. It's like this integration of the plant into the economy. But beyond that, it's the integration of the plant being accessible to residents with repeat customer business versus visitor spends and visitor customer business. So with that, I want to move on to hospitality, because you mentioned this multiple times.
Sure.
You've been talking about the quality of flower, which really speaks to one of the three segments of the cannabis tourism audience, which is the cannabis connoisseur.
Mm-hmm.
And this segment smokes weed. They love hash. They love quality. They'll chase cultivars, exotics, uniques. Now, there's two other traveler segments under the cannabis travel audience today that are measured. That's the cannabis wellness traveler and the cannabis curious traveler. Mm-hmm. And these are less likely to smoke. They're looking for beverages. They're also looking for hospitality level, travel worthy experiences where they're really paying for the experience. So how many of the shops and places that you visited are, in your mind as a hospitality expert, hospitality level experiences where somebody could go there and may not even use cannabis, but they'll come away from it feeling like they had a really interesting experience, a life experience that was eye-opening?
Yeah. Well, I write about it in my new book that's going to be coming out at the end of the year with the top 25 for 2025. But there are still coffee shops that are holding on to the original vibe. That going back to the 1970s and to the early 80s, and that whole original vibe.
Yeah.
I can't say that is what the momentum is. The momentum is moving towards much more marketing based. I actually call the packaging drag queens with the Mylar bags that are all kinds of everything. Because whatever you're seeing on the outside of the package is probably not going to be what's on the inside of the package. The market in Amsterdam, again, is a little bit of a different part of all of this. You've got pros that have been coming here on a repetitive basis 4 or 5 times a year for 10, 15, 20 years from the UK or from Italy or from France or from, somewhere where they can't get it easily themselves. And they are in their own right, through their own experiences, experts.
Yeah.
But they're generally not educated experts.
Right.
They're experienced based upon their repetitive things, and usually aroma perceptions is what I find for the most part. Now, if we take someone like yourself or someone like Max from the United States, and you bring them over here, it's a fright show. You know, the first thing that you start seeing is, you know, the guy. Again, people here are conscientious about money more than they are conscientious about a lot of the other peripherals of this hospitality experience. I became famous here for when they asked me the first time what was the biggest difference about here from California, and I said, well, when I left California, I had beautiful blonde girls with full-figured girls that were using tweezers in glass jars and putting the flower into the nice jars for me and here I have 25-year-old guys that look like they're auto mechanics with black fingernails reaching down and grabbing my buds with their masturbatory fingers with one hand. Then the other hand comes in to pick off this one little piece of this or a piece of that for that 0.01 gram. And I would, right. And then when they let go, and then you see their fingertips that are just caked and packed from the trichome heads from the last 200 customers that they've pulled ahead. Okay. And you do this over and over and over again. And after a while, again, you start to see this. I started asking the guys, listen, before you grab that, how old are you? And a guy would say, 25, 25. So normal 25. You have a girlfriend? Yeah. No girlfriend. Okay. So you masturbate at least twice a day. Do you use your left hand or your right hand? Because whatever you use, I want you to use the other hand and just the one with the stem, grab that stem for me. Okay. And I want that stem. Give me, and I mean, it really, again, my sensibilities completely different.
Right. No, point taken. Point taken. I mean, this is part of what we're witnessing right now is this evolution of an industry trying to create best practices, you know, hospitality level service. You know, also you mentioned interesting, like these more traditional legacy shops that are trying to keep their cultural vibe that makes them special versus the shops that want to be the Apple or Starbucks of cannabis and have it very, like you could stamp it out anywhere in the world and all you're doing is moving flower that's, you know, a trusted product that's good quality, hopefully.
Again, I think that's what you want to do, though, if you're going to be in Amsterdam is
right.
You know, the best parts of that. Like there's a great place called Katsu, which is one of my top 25. And they have a beautiful, very unique bong inside their place. It's called a verdamper. And you can Google it. Brilliant device. One of the few that are set up. He's got it on this beautiful wood table with lights underneath it. And it was one of the earliest vaporizers in the Netherlands. And it's phenomenal to just even be able to see something like that. And it's old school, the way that they sell everything in packages.
Yeah.
Again, don't have bud tenders touching everything. And you can get all of the old traditional cultivars, you know, the Dr. Grinspoon and the White Widows and all of those types of things. And see, I love that. Then you're getting the whole real, you know, cultural feel for it. But again, there's a lot of the kids, newer, younger demographics. A lot of them are more smoking in pre-rolls. Prefer a pre-roll joint now. May not have a lot of knowledge or information, and so they'll take a chance with a pre-roll. And now, of course, we're starting to see more and more people doing dabs, and now more and more shops with the live rosin and that part. Go ahead.
And now, I mean, something interesting. Amsterdam's the most mature cannabis tourism destination in the world. I think the Bulldogs celebrating their 50-year anniversary this year, and they have a hotel and all sorts of businesses that revolve around a cannabis brand that was born. And when I think of Amsterdam, I don't just think of shops and lounges. I also think of museums, and I think you had a rickshaw tour thing. So tell us a little bit about the other experiences that are not inside a coffee shop that round out and show some maturity in the market when it comes to cannabis and hemp experiences.
Yeah, you know, again, I think that it's really weird. As long as I've been there, and I've had all of my friends that have come from all different places around the world, everyone has a different kind of a setup of how much time they have there, what they want to see, how much time they have.
Right.
This new book that I have coming out, I'm doing a partnership thing with one of the rickshaw companies, and we're doing rickshaw tours. And I took the 25 coffee shops, and then I laid them out in space from the distance from the central train station. And so you can get an idea, and also all of the major attractions as you're going. So you can decide if you want to go and check out the MoMA museum and do that. If you just want to go and hang out at the Dom Square, you can go do that. If you want to go hang out and actually get a vibe at one of the old school spots like Rookies, and hang out in their little VIP area where they can also smoke a Captain Hooter. One of the wake dates I've got going on over there. I love that. You've got that kind of experience. Amsterdam is one of those places where you really want to explore it yourself. And I tell everybody ahead of time, and I'm always happy to get online with anyone and say, okay, how much time do you have? What is it that you really want to see? Is it a hash thing for you? Do you want to go for the big hash thing? Do you want to go for a rosin press experience and get a hardcore dab rig and the whole thing? Do you want to try a laser bong? Do you want to try a freeze pipe? All of these types of things that are kind of experiences you can do here. But the city itself and walking around and checking out the architecture for me has always been one of the
it's beautiful.
Taking a boat ride or a cruise around town, lots of those. That's why I like those rickshaws. Those rickshaws you avoid all the traffic. You can go up on the sidewalk. It takes you directly wherever you need to go to.
Great. So I mean, to connect the dots again to travel, you have people arriving at the train station in Amsterdam, and your rickshaw tour partnership company is picking people up at the train station, taking them on tours that are cannabis themed throughout Amsterdam to the book you wrote, which was the top 25 shops with the quality flower. You sound like one of the ultimate cannabis connoisseur traveler tour guides that anyone that seems like cannabis is part of their lifestyle, you seem like the guy that could really create an amazing experience in Amsterdam. Just to share a little data real quick to tie this into tourism a bit deeper, and then I want to do a kind of one final question for you, Dan. I remember reading some data in 2017, I believe, 2016, where I think it was 1 in 4 people that visit Amsterdam go into a coffee shop. And 1 in 4 people, 1 in 4 travelers that go to Amsterdam will experience a coffee shop, and 1 in 10 travelers will actually cite cannabis as the driving force behind their booking to go to Amsterdam, which goes into destination marketing and destination vacation dollars and tourism spends, right? So the fact that now Amsterdam is going to be competing with California, Colorado, Canada, Uruguay, it's interesting to see all these destinations now figuring out what their cannabis brand experience is, and then how do you message that to the world to attract tourism and have people stay in hotels and eat at restaurants and experience museums and arts and culture, as well as visit cannabis events and lounges and whatnot.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Dan, all of it. So give us my last question is to give us a quick rundown of your book title, your projects, your pre-roll, your other goodies that you have. Give us kind of how to know your bullet points of what you've created, what exists, and how people can find out more about you.
Cool. Okay. Well, you can find me in general at Captain Hooter, CaptainHooter.com. And that has the general information about the original book, which, again, was quite a while ago now. And then in 2020, I wrote an updated version of that called the Connoisseur's Guide Top 20 for 2020. And then later this year, the new one is called the Top 25 for 2025. You can find me at Captain Hooter on most of the social media platforms. and on YouTube. And I have several videos with some great interviews that I've done with everyone from Tommy Chong to Mila the Hash Queen, who I spoke about. I write also for Fat Nugs magazine. And if you look in last month's issue of Fat Nugs magazine, I'm right in the centerfold there with a great profile article that I did on Soma and his original cultivar that is so well embedded here called Amnesia Haze. I had somebody here created a cultivar and named it after me after I gave it my approval, and it was originally a German cultivar called Forest Fruit, and it's being grown all over the Netherlands here right now. And I have my wonderful friends Lance and the gang over at Terplock Bags, who made us some fantastic Terplock bags for these. Cool. Which part of, if you're going to have my name on it, and as I talk about and speak about the bud tenders, in order to be able to sell this with my name on it, they're going to have to seal these, heat seal them, so they'll be embedded into the packaging. And I know that it's in the perfect environment, and I know that no sticky fingers are going to be getting all over the cultivar. And then, as I mentioned before, they also are now selling the Captain Hooter Wake and Bake pre-rolls over at Rookie's Coffee Shop. And this is a very special infused bang to kind of kick your day off with some resinous hashish blended with some premium hybrid flower. And awesome. A little, it's quite nummy. And then on top of that, one of my fellow interpeners, a man by the name of Artur, who runs Sensunique here, created a Captain Hooter Forest Fruit beer. And it's a blonde beer, and it is actually incredible. And I love my beer, and I'm very spoiled, and it's very difficult for me to say it's really great without it being really great. It's a really great beer, surprising, and every time that somebody drinks it, they come back with some different perception because it's a fruit beer. I've had strawberries and lemon and orange and the whole thing, and it's got a little bite to it, and it's so I'm just, again, I'm having a blast, and I'm helping out some of the coffee shops with some of their social media, and keeping everyone up to date with all the new stuff that's going on around town. And
wonderful.
Yeah.
So CaptainHooter.com is the best place to dive into if that website, correct?
And if you'd like to see some of my artwork, you can go to CaptainHooter.art. And that is the artwork that I make with the microscopes while I'm doing the interpening. And I've actually even been creating pillows. And if you go to the Magic Mushroom Museum in Amsterdam, they are selling Captain Hooter mushroom pillows. And they are kind of something like that, but much smaller, easier to carry to go home.
Wow. All right. Well, Captain Hooter, amazing. So much incredible, interesting, creative work, and your passion for hospitality and tourism really shines through. Thank you for making time today. This is Travel Tuesday podcast on Beard Bros Media. My name's Brian Applegarth. We've interviewed Captain Hooter today, talked a lot about Amsterdam and the evolution of cannabis travel and tourism, the importance of quality, safe tested flower. Be sure you join us for our next episode, and thank you for joining us today. This is Beard Bros Media, Beard Bros Travel signing off. Thanks.